Today on the show we have ThreeDogg, co-founder of OHN, or Outer Heaven Network, the world's largest Metal Gear-focused streaming network, streaming everything from marathons to big boss and in-depth story runs since 2010.
And I'm gonna hit the leave quietly button, as painful as it is. Oh, that hurt.
There will be other times, Nitro, I promise.
I know, but it was... Nah, if we can get him on, that'll be fun.
Like I said, this has been a very sort of surreal moment for me now.
Yeah, it's kind of weird.
This week has been full of like, oh shit, my childhood is like, well, not childhood. Like, my childhood, though, has been compounding on me. Like, fucking ThreeDogg is laughing at me at my own show.
Reality is starting to fold in on itself.
You were watching my stream when you were a child? How young are you?
No. That's why I had to add that disclaimer.
Stop making us feel old, Jesus Christ.
I was not a child, but I spent the better part of my 20s watching OHN. I think even before it was called OHN. So
yeah,
this is
I
sort
spent
of
most
like...
of my 20s playing games on OHN.
Nice, twinsies. All right. So yeah, I mean, when we started this whole thing, like, you guys were at the top of my list. And then when you, like, I'm going to shut up now. These are my friends.
Get it out of your system.
This is the guy that was freaking out in the clubhouse just a moment ago, but it was pretty cool.
Damn.
There was like Lori Allen. She came late, and then all of a sudden her and David Hayter were like speaking like they were the boss and Snake.
You were talking to all these people just now. Lori Allen was there as well. I don't really know what you're doing in the background with Hayter or where you're talking to him or how all that's going down.
They got iPhones and they're sitting there in their little Clubhouse app talking to celebrities, just doing like Discord calls and shit, you know.
Dude, and then Rob Paulson just dropped in.
What? Rob Paulson?
Yeah, just dropped in.
Donatello,
was like, hi.
and Raphael from Ninja Turtles.
And then he dropped out.
I gotta buy an iPhone now just for this fucking app.
Get a better phone, man.
It has to be an Apple, not necessarily a better phone.
What's the difference?
Got you this time.
Hey, I'm Fingers.
Hey everyone, this is Days Ahead.
And I'm Nitroid. You're listening to the Kojima Frequency.
Congratulations, by the way, Nitroid, on you finally acquiring your Tiger, whatever the hell it is, Snake's Revenge thing.
Thank you. It's ironically not the Tiger Metal Gear that I'm really looking for, but this is a close second.
Yeah, I was like, it's time for him to change his pinned tweet. And then I was like, oh shit, that's a different Tiger thing. Never mind.
So he's still
Damn
after
you,
it.
Tiger!
I feel like I'm the only one who wasn't disappointed. That was actually a better surprise for me. And then that comic artist, the dude who did the box art for Snake's Revenge, didn't even know that it was on the Tiger Electronic.
Oh, that was amazing. I saw that.
Somebody owes Dubois some money.
That blew my mind.
Yeah.
Did you know it talks?
What?
It talks.
What's it say?
like stupid little lines like, there are rations in the next room. You have key card 1.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah, because there wasn't really like Metal Gear Solid, phrases by that point. So it's not going to be like, it's not over yet. Like it's, or it could say like, I feel asleep. That'd be fun. But
I'm not much of a Metal Gear collector at all. Like, I'm so big into the series. I play it like every week. But when it comes to having like getting all the merch and having every version of every possible game, I'm useless. I don't think I even own a copy of Subsistence, the original Subsistence right now. I used to, but I don't know where it is.
Uh-oh.
Is it more, I was going to say, is that because, it's not...
It's not turning on.
Uh-oh.
You pop the batteries.
Did
keep
it
going,
die?
keep going. I'm going to perform some surgery here.
Are we about to have a funeral in this episode? Oh, Lord.
07's in the chat.
Lieutenant, let's put the plan into effect.
I was going to say, is it just because there's no, like, technical value in keeping those titles, as a Metal Gear streamer?
I think I would, if I was settled in a house that I owned, maybe, and I wasn't in London moving around, having to carry stuff from place to place when I move house.
Yeah.
I think that would Yeah, I think when I'm settled, I might I might try and build up a proper collection. But until
Okay.
then, I think I'm okay with, just buying digital versions of games when they come out new and trying to keep everything as low as possible.
That's totally fair. I was trying to figure out where you actually lived, but I didn't want to be rude. But
Yeah, I'm from Ireland, but I've been living in London for the last like 5 years. But
Oh.
before then, I lived my whole life in Ireland, west of Ireland.
okay. Yeah, I went to London like I want to say a year ago for work. So I understand how the time zone difference can like fuck you up. That was me every morning.
Yeah. I'm so used to dealing with American time zones, though. So I don't know
Yeah.
how that messed me up.
I was gonna ask you, like, because you run the channel sort of at American prime time, how does that fit around your schedule?
Yeah, well, it means our schedules often just go all over the place. Streaming in general is one of the hardest things about it is keeping a schedule for me anyway, because you're your own boss. You make your own hours. And I don't have much self-control at times. I'm trying to get better at it. And I'm not too bad with it, but sometimes I just go all over the place and I'm waking up in the evening and streaming through the early morning and
So
just all over the place.
yeah, I'm not trying to be an enabler or anything like that, but I feel like that's sort of your appeal though, is like, hey, I am in the first floor basement of the nuclear warhead facility.
Right.
And I'm about to go into the girls' bathroom. Let me show you the 5 different secrets about this 2-second moment. And
I don't think there are any secrets in that bathroom apart from the guy taking a piss, is there?
well, I'm talking about the ladies' room when you can make the different codec calls and see,
Right.
even right now you're just like, actually, I don't know if there's that many secrets, but that's sort of the novelty, right? Is that like this game is so full of secrets, and now we have this personified Pandora's box, if you will, that will open, when we get to those like rich moments and secrets or whatnot.
Right.
Speaking of secrets, that thing that just got, I don't know if that was just revealed or if it just got brought up, but that thing at the bridge scene in Metal Gear Solid 3 with the Sorrow being on the codec.
Oh,
I
yeah.
had definitely never seen that, but holy shit, that gave me chills when I put that all together. I was like, whoa.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, when you go into Razvet, where you meet Sokolov, the boss doesn't respond.
Yeah.
And if you repeatedly call her, eventually the sorrow will come through. And I think he says his line, sad, so sad, but it's all distorted and you can't really hear it.
Ugh.
Boss.
Really ominous, isn't it?
Metal Gear has always sort of teetered over the edge of horror.
Yeah, it's creepy. And I'd never heard of that until this past week. So
There are a lot of guys on Twitter doing really good research at the moment, going into all sorts of Japanese interviews and finding out all sorts of information that I had no idea about. And that was one of them.
yeah.
I think it was Bad Humans who discovered that. Another really
Yep.
crazy thing that he discovered recently was maybe people knew about this before, but it was Snake's beard growing back in Arsenal Gear. If you save in Arsenal Gear and come, if you gave him the shaver at the start of the game, when you meet him in Arsenal Gear, he won't have his beard. He'll be clean shaven. But if you, like with the end in MGS3, if the clock goes forward a week and you come back and reload the save, his beard will have grown back. I always thought MGS3 was the first game to really mess around with the clock. But MGS2 did it first.
Yeah, we actually just talked about that on the last episode.
Yeah, we talked about that.
It astonishes me that we are coming up on 20 years since that game came out and we are still finding things.
Yeah, I know. Madness.
Have you streamed that yet?
I during our last marathon, I showed the beard thing. Yeah, and I think the arcade showed off the sorrow thing last night right after it was discovered. Because Bad Humans is in our channel all the time.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing that was found recently, Vamp and Solidus will track the player in the Harrier as they're flying by.
I saw that as well. Yeah. What was another one?
And that was just from a guy who was taking photos in the mode. Like there's the guy who found that, he just takes photos in the Metal Gear Solid games and just picked that up.
Yeah, that's wild. There was one that I found out about recently, and I think this was known for a while, but it was new to me. Seeing Johnny in the bathroom with your sensor, with the bomb sensor. I think people had known about that for a while. And you can pick up the granny's piss on the sensor as well. And unlike Johnny, it comes up as Fat Man's scent. It's the same yellow scent. So now my theory is that Fat Man's special cologne is actually his piss, because it's the same thing that comes up on the radar as the granny.
No.
Whereas Johnny's scent is red because he's cooking up a big nuke in there, I guess.
It's his own brand.
Checks out.
That's what I'm gonna start calling it from now on.
Oh, that's terrible.
Oh, man.
The tiger is working, by the way.
Oh, nice. You got it?
Yeah, it's safe. Freaking better be.
Yeah, we had a lot of like gaming news happen this week. We got a bunch of stories here in the notes. Resident Evil, we got this Lady Dimitrescu measuring in officially at 9'6". So, take that information and do with it what you will.
Yeah, I haven't been keeping up with all that. But I played the demo and I enjoyed the demo. Seems like it's going to be pretty... my wish for a Resident Evil 4 remake, if they were to do it, was that it would be more horror-esque.
Yeah.
Sort of give people what they wanted back. For the people who were disappointed by RE4 when it first came out, maybe give them more of what they would have wanted. Still have it be action-focused, but give it a much darker tone. And it seems like Village is kind of doing something similar, where there's all this Resident Evil 4 influence with the shopkeeper and the setting and the castle and the villages, and even the werewolves weren't really in 4, but it has all that crazy stuff, but it seems like it's going to be darker. So I'm intrigued to play it.
Have you ever seen the footage of the early development footage of Resident Evil 4 when it was very different in tone?
With the ghost.
I did, yeah.
The Hook Man. I almost
Man,
wonder
right.
if this would be an opportunity to create some sort of like additional mission where you could have that experience. It's more than likely never going to happen, but that would be like, if you're going to remake the game, this is your opportunity to revisit some of that.
Yeah.
I mean, they did, it wasn't, that impactful, but they did make a reference or two to 1.5 and the 2 remake, which I've been like inhaling pretty much on PC.
Oh, wasn't it with like one of Claire's alternate outfits?
Yeah, I think her name is like Elsa Walker or something like that, her original character concept. So at the very least, there has to be some sort of shout out.
It's funny with Village coming out, how everyone's sort of losing their mind over Lady Dimitrescu and how tall she is. I don't know if you saw or not, but somebody, I'm guessing a squatter, got a hold of SilentHill.com and put up an image of Pyramid Head next to a scale that says 9 feet, and underneath it just says he was first.
Dude, so, I want to, like, part of me just wants that to be official and then just be like, hey, because, like, I don't know, Capcom and Konami definitely had that, like, survival horror feud before, just like their series, like Resident Evil versus Silent Hill,
Oh, if it was official, that'd be amazing.
Seems like we might actually be getting some significant new Silent Hill stuff as well, given what Yamaoka said.
Yeah, I was going to say, the timing of those two is like, I can't imagine. I just picture somebody at Konami being like, okay, I need to grab this domain, and then going to that and being like, oh, fuck.
To be fair, though, Pyramid Head's only 9 feet with the top of his pyramid, so... Lady's got
details.
Yeah.
So I hope it's a new Silent Hill rather than a Silent Hill 1 remake. And if it is a Silent Hill 1 remake, I hope they get like Ito and some of the original team members on board.
That would be great.
The art direction and everything is just so important in Silent Hill. It's all about the art.
I'm so worried about that, though. It's if they are making a new game, or they're making a remake, whatever comes out, and I'm excited to see what they're going to do with it if that is the case, but it's not going to be PT. That's always going to be in my mind as like that was an Icarus moment. They were flying close to the sun. They got burned and fell to earth, Like, that's the thing we're never going to get, and it's always going to be compared to.
Yeah. I think a lot of the hardcore Silent Hill fans that were there before PT, I don't think they'll mind. I don't think they'll care too much,
Oh, probably
there,
not.
there might be a crowd that are just going to be, wishing it was PT or whatever. But I don't know. I think, especially if there are original team members on board, I think people will be pretty open to something, to whatever it is,
If it's original team members, I wonder if it'll go back to sort of that original tone more where, after Silent Hill 2 and onward, those games sort of steered into the whole psychological aspect a lot harder. You see what you take with you, right? But the first game wasn't like that at all. It was more about the town and the cult and the history and the details there. So I wonder, like, where it'll be on that scale. Like, will it lean more towards the first game or towards the later ones?
Yeah, it'll be interesting. I remember them saying before they disbanded that they wanted to do, they wanted to have a take on daylight horror. They wanted to make a horror game that would take place during the day. I always thought that would be interesting. Makes me think of Mulholland Drive and that infamous jump scare.
Oh, right.
Outside the diner.
Well, if anybody could do it.
We were talking earlier about a possible Code Veronica update, which I think all of 10 people want, but me and Nightroid are
I love
two
Code
of them.
Veronica.
Okay, now we found a third one.
It's my favorite Resident Evil.
Yeah, I feel like it's so underrated, both in terms of the actual game, obviously, but also its plot relevance, because there's a lot of shifts in character arcs because of Code Veronica.
Code Veronica is more Resident Evil 3 than Resident Evil 3 is.
Well, wasn't it supposed to be Resident Evil 3, and then Resident Evil 3 was supposed to be sort of like a side story?
I do not know. I know there's a history there with 3 and Code Veronica, and there was some sort of agreement they had with Sega, but I don't know the details.
Yeah.
I thought Code Veronica was a weaker game in many ways, but I loved the just the absurdity and hilarity of the story.
Yeah.
Alfred and Alexia, Steve is a huge meme in my channel just for how much I love Steve. Every word that comes out of that guy's mouth is pure gold, and the fans reject him. I've seen so many people hate on Steve and all the Resident Evil communities on Twitch. I don't know what their problem is. Everything he says is just magic.
If they remake Code Veronica, remake Steve is either going to be incredible or awful.
I don't know if Steve would work too well in this modern era, though. If people didn't accept him back then, I feel like he was such a product of that era.
Steve Burnside is 50% of the reason why I want a Code Veronica remake, is because I kind of want to see, in the same way they changed Leon, which was very subtle, but I really liked it. I want to see that for Steve Burnside.
Yeah. I wonder, would he still try and grab Claire's ass and shit when she's not looking? And didn't he try to kiss her while she was asleep?
Yeah, he's a real creeper.
He was a real horn dog.
Can they do that in 2021?
I don't know. They're taking out butts in Mass Effect, so probably not.
Okay, there's no way.
This will not fly in our new Puritan society.
Remove the ass.
You're gonna have a nice control system for when you have to run from him when he's hulking out.
Just don't let the B team make it, please. So they don't fuck it up like they did with Resident Evil 3.
Okay, credit where credit's due, and this is going back to my remake point about the characters. They did one thing good with that. It was remaking Carlos. And if they could do that with Carlos,
Granted.
I would love to see something similar for Steve.
But that's the
all
thing.
I'm
They
saying.
can't make
Steve with
hot.
new hair.
No, they can't do
That's all.
hot
Sometimes
Steve.
that's all you need.
You can't do hot Steve. That would ruin him.
It doesn't have to be hot though. Carlos, I can't believe I'm talking about Carlos 2 weeks in a row. And I promise we'll get to Metal Gear and OHN questions soon, ThreeDogg, I promise.
Welcome to the Resident Evil podcast.
No worries.
No, but in the same way, Carlos is supposed to be sort of like a heartthrob in a sense that Like he technically saves a damsel in distress. He's flirty, and it doesn't really work for the original one, but I thought he was like, he had the perfect balance in the remake, even though the remake was not so great. And like with Leon, it's not just that he's so much hotter or whatever. It's they really amplify his how naive he is. You know, there's that one scene when he goes down and he sees Ben in the jail cell, and he says something like, Ben's like, "You got to get me out of here." Like he mentions Chief Irons, and then Leon says something like, "Oh, well, I'm sure the chief had a good reason to keep you in here during like the zombie apocalypse." Yeah. And it's like, it's those little things that just amplify that innocent Leon whose worldview just gets destroyed by this event. So in the context of Steve Burnside, I would love to see, you know, maybe not as, I guess, emo as he was in the original, but kind of taking that, like, what's the word I'm looking for? Victim? I don't want to say victim because I feel like
they
that's
could make
bad.
him a more pitiable character,
right?
Probably.
Yeah, that's a good word
more
for it.
Sympathetic.
Exactly, like just somebody you absolutely pity, but you still care about. But yeah, I'll stop talking about Resident Evil. We'll cut that now. This is a Metal Gear podcast, so
I don't mind talking about all sorts of things. It's okay.
Well, it's funny because earlier when you were talking about the sorrow on the bridge scene, Metal Gear, you know, just to kind of tie the two together, Metal Gear will occasionally drift into these horror territories, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where it just gets really morbid and dark, and it's only, you know, it only happens briefly, like that or the hallway in MGS1. But when it does, you're always like, oh, okay. That's a tonal shift.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think MGS1 in general has it verges on horror a lot of the time in subtle ways. Like, even when you're crawling through the vents at the start of the game, there's that like whirring on industrial sound, and it really feels like you're almost in a horror game. Everything's so dark. You get this like reverb on the characters' voices during scenes, and it has a pretty oppressive atmosphere, I think, that verges on horror.
Yeah, appropriately, it's the closest to a John Carpenter movie.
And then there's MGS2, which just feels eerie and surreal and kind of uncanny. You know, you're seeing all these things that have played out before, but it's like there's something that's not right about it all.
Oh, yeah.
Step to the left.
It's not really horror, but...
It's unsettling.
It's not really horror, but yeah.
It's like you're watching the Truman Show. It's like, okay, this is something's off here.
Yeah.
That's a good comparison.
I need to make a poster that's just the Truman Show with Raiden on the front.
Oh, okay. Yeah, let's save that for a title card one day. It's funny that you mentioned like sort of that surrealness of Metal Gear or Metal Gear Solid 2 rather, because I saw this thread you had. I think it was like you or DRK. There was this thread you had about some of the game over messages, those audio clips that play when you're in Arsenal gear. And I played that game as a kid, and I was kind of scared to click those links because just those little subtle changes, those like freaked me out for the longest time. Even like the whole like change to exist at the end of Metal Gear Solid 4 if you die.
I always forget about that. Yeah.
Yeah, that stuck with me because it freaked me the hell out.
That's interesting. Yeah. Another really weird detail about 4's mission failed screen is, it cuts to all these flashbacks. You're seeing this static and all these things that you've already seen in the game,
right?
Like little flashes of cutscenes. But in between those, you see Snake being hung up on Mantis's puppet strings, which is kind of unnerving, makes it feel like Snake isn't really in control of what he's doing at all. Like he's just being led by Mantis. And of course, Mantis in 4 is just the most absurd thing. The persona of Psycho Mantis was implanted within Screaming Mantis. So Screaming Mantis was just another puppet being controlled by Psycho Mantis. Why is Psycho Mantis after Snake again? Didn't he want to help him when he died?
So I have a thought about that.
Yeah.
Have you ever called Rose in MGS4 after dying?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Of course he has. Oh my
Ro-
gosh. Sorry.
I know, look who I'm asking, right? One of the conversations she brings up, Snake will say how he feels like he's viewing himself outside of his body. He's basically talking
Yeah.
about the player viewing him from third person, right? And Rose speculates that he might have a mild case of depersonalization disorder, right?
Yeah.
Well, one of the symptoms of depersonalization disorder is often described by people, and if somebody out here knows more about it than I do, because I am not a medical professional.
I am not
please
a financial service. Sorry, just kidding.
Right. I am not a medical professional. This does not constitute medical advice. But from what I've read, it seems that one of the common symptoms of depersonalization disorder is what people will call visual snow, where they compare it to like a TV signal being lost, where they're just like a disconnect between.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, that between themselves and their body. Like their experience and their physical body. Like it's a very hard to describe break between those two layers. And so you look at the game over screen for MGS4, and what is it? It's static and it looks like a TV signal's been cut. So I wonder if that was kind of an intentional thing there.
Yeah.
If there's a connection there.
Another thing to take note of that might tie into this is obviously the way the game begins with the advertisements and the PMC commercials.
Right.
The game shows it begins as this TV show. And well, not even a TV show, as a TV that you can flick through and change channels. And then I guess the film comes on after the commercial, which is MGS4.
God, those commercials are so trippy.
It really is a movie. Holy shit.
I mean, it won a world record, or two of them, actually.
Another really weird detail that I noticed about the whole Mantis thing, which feels like some kind of commentary from Kojima. At the beginning of Act 5, the Act 5 briefing, well, maybe technically before it's Act 5, but the Act 5 briefing, another just absurd scene with all sorts of tonal shifts. But, you know, when Mei Ling is giving her briefing and Johnny is trying to touch her ass.
Yeah, that's kind of weird.
She there's a moment where they're all like defeated, and she says, you know, come on, guys, we got to think of something. And she reels off one of her quotes. And the quote she says just happens to be the thing that she says after you beat Mantis in MGS1, which you can only get after that scene when she says the tongues of dying men enforce attention like deep harmony. What does she say after that? The tongues of dying men enforce attention like deep harmony. Where words are spent, they're seldom spent in vain. And in MGS1, she says that to imply that, you know, Mantis wasn't lying with his dying breath. You know, I think you should believe him, Snake. People don't usually lie with their dying breath. And that's the quote she says to reinforce that. And that just so happens to be the same thing she says at the beginning of Act 5, which is where you meet Mantis. So very strange.
It's also totally ineffectual when she says it. Nobody gives a shit.
Yeah. And I guess if I always looked at it in the context of Mantis, but I guess it kind of makes sense within that scene as well that these could be their dying words.
Well,
you know, so they really need to, you know, come on, guys. Our dying words might actually mean something here, you know?
So I have an alternate theory about that, actually, and it's something I've been trying to work out for a while.
Yeah, go ahead.
It's no secret that I do not care much for Metal Gear Solid 4, to put it lightly. But I think I get what it was going for here. Throughout the game, there is this recurring theme of patterns being followed. Proxies for things, you know, stand-ins for other things. And so MGS4 is sort of in this weird remixed sort of way going through the beats of all the previous games of its own history, right? It's the franchise going through its own history. I've heard some people say that if like Metal Gear Solid 2 is a deconstruction of video games, then Metal Gear Solid 4 is a deconstruction of Metal Gear. And you see these patterns repeated throughout the game. So like MGS4 Act 2 is very reminiscent of MGS3, down to, Snake wearing fatigues. Act 4, obviously it's putting you back in Shadow Moses. And you see these recurring visual elements, Raiden standing in for the ninja, Meryl showing back up. You've got all of the characters you've known from the previous games reappearing, even if there's not really a reason for them to be there, like Vamp. And throughout the game, this idea of Snake sort of taking responsibility for the past and trying to make right the things that were wrong. He's trying to break that pattern. And as you get closer to the end of the game, the pattern starts breaking down. And I think Mei Ling is an example of that, because she's doing what you expect Mei Ling to do, to prattle off a quote and inspire you to do the next thing. But it doesn't work, because she's just following the pattern and it's not working anymore. You're in uncharted territory. You're starting to do different things and you're going off in a different direction. And, there's a guy, James Howell. I don't know if you're familiar with him.
I've read that analysis. Yeah, Monstrous Births, I think.
Yeah,
it's called,
he goes
isn't it?
into this in far more detail, and I think this is the Mei Ling scene is just another example in his overall thesis.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, the proxy thing is interesting, because it's like right from the start of the game, Snake at the grave, standing in for Big Boss, doing the salute.
Right.
And people always say when we play that game, like, why is Snake saluting there? But it always gets misinterpreted as the boss's grave as well. But like, why is Snake at the boss's grave? Because you think you associate that scene with the end of MGS3, and people naturally just think it's the boss, which makes sense. But yeah, it's interesting. The going back to the Mantis connection and her using that specific quote that she said after Mantis, it kind of feels like it's Kojima acknowledging what he's doing to Mantis in a way, like, I'm bringing Mantis back and he's after Snake again, which doesn't really make any sense.
Right.
But the fact that he puts that quote there, which was there to imply that he wasn't lying with his dying breath, is just very strange. There's that sort of contradiction, and MGS4 is all about those contradictions.
Yeah, he's there because you're playing Metal Gear and you expect him to be there.
Yeah. Raiden is the big one, I think, that bothers me in 4 when it comes to characters who are like contradictions of their previous selves, or characters who didn't really grow in the ways that they were supposed to, or how it seemed they were supposed to.
God, don't get me started.
Yeah. Raiden becoming a drunk and all that stuff really doesn't sit well with me. But
here's a summary of Raiden's character arc. Maybe I should stop trying to be a copy of Solid Snake. Maybe I should try to be my own person. Snake's like, yeah, that's the spirit. That's what you should do. And then Raiden's like, I'll be Gray Fox instead.
Solid Snake's just like, shit.
Yeah, Shinkawa's words about Raiden in 4 was fascinating. He said, Raiden appears as the cyborg ninja in 4 to symbolize the abuse he took for being the character he was in MGS2. And he was speaking with regards to how sort of inhuman he is, or how he like literally lost his humanity, his body. How he's pretty much entirely cybernetic. He has the spine, the upper half of his head, his heart, but not much else is human. So there's that whole meta thing. So you think when you see Raiden as the cyborg ninja, you think, oh, what a badass. But you forget that he has to suffer to become the cyborg ninja, because Gray Fox didn't become a badass ninja because he wanted to.
Yeah.
It was not by choice.
It was the result of all these experiments. So if Raiden is to become this ninja, he has to suffer for it. And he really did. But not many people seem to care too much. They were just happy to see him back as this
he got
badass.
jacked for his clothes in MGS3 and then run over by the Shagohod in a parody video.
Yeah.
He's punished, Jack.
And then then his development in Rising is just like, it just seems like a joke in Rising. He gets his happy ending in 4, but no, he's back, and now he's embracing his inner fucking killer.
Yeah.
He's embracing his his past as a child soldier, and he loves tearing people up and making mincemeat of them. I always thought that was just kind of funny after 4. You know, 4 kind of butchers him, but then tries to give him a happy ending at the end, and then Rising just brings him back out of that happy ending again.
Psych!
I am immensely curious about what that original script for Metal Gear Solid Rising was like.
Man.
Yeah.
And yeah, that would make like the transition between MGS2 Raiden and MGS4 Raiden just makes so much more sense. Like, you know, we would have that context of, instead of just these opposite sides of him, it's like, oh shit, okay. All of a sudden he's a badass.
Yeah. Yeah. It might have made his development in 4 easier to swallow.
Yeah.
And when we take into consideration sort of that morbid meta message of how he had to suffer in order for people to actually appreciate him, if they had applied that to the original script of Rising, I would have like dug into it.
Yeah. I'm okay with them doing this sort of meta thing in 4 and having the characters be shaped by things that happen outside of the series. I just wish they made it make more sense within the story of the actual game. You know, you get to that call with Rose, and when she talks about him getting drunk and shit, and it's like you can't just undo a whole game's worth of character development in a call like that, where you click your fingers and he's just a drunk, and memories resurfaced from Liberia. And like, sure, like if you think realistically, what could happen to a person realistically? He had a terrible upbringing. He had a terrible life. It would make sense that these things come back.
Yeah.
But in a storytelling sense, in a narrative sense, it doesn't really make much sense when we go through a whole game for him to change. And when he has this big realization at the end of 2, where he becomes his own man and throws away the tags, and you know, it's this moment of enlightenment. And you can't, for me anyway, you can't just undo it in a codec call like that. You know, you need to flesh it out more. And maybe the original Rising story maybe was going to make that easier to swallow and flesh it out more. I don't know.
You know, I think you hit the nail on the head with MGS4, because it had a strong meta narrative, but a weak narrative.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, because like when you talk to people about stuff like that, you like imagine, you know, like you said, it's like, yeah, if you think about it and like put it together, it's like, yeah, well, he did grow up eating, you know, gunpowder and all that stuff. Yeah, that's bound to probably bubble up as
don't knock it till you try it.
PTSD later, you know. Yeah, we still need to get that cookbook out. But yeah, it's one of those things, like the more you think about, the more it makes sense. But if you were to just like put it in one presentation, it's like, yeah, this didn't really make sense how they just jumped from there. But
another really strange detail in 2 is how they claim that Jack was actually in Foxhound and did work for the real Roy Campbell.
Oh God, yeah.
Like, what's up with that? It's really strange. Like it's another thing that I feel like it has to be on purpose, because it's just like it's such a major part of MGS2 that they obviously didn't forget about it. And it just makes me think, you know, is the MGS2, does another version of MGS2 exist in 4's world?
Yeah, it's called the Band Dessiné.
Did we play a completely different MGS2 to the MGS2 that actually happened? You know,
this is in the Ghost Babel timeline.
They forgot to program in the bad ending for MGS2, so we all got the good ending when the bad ending was canon.
All right, if we're airing grievances on MGS4 here, can I just say, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. One of my biggest gripes is the fact that they just sort of gloss over the fact that Arsenal Gear rammed like half a mile into Manhattan. And they just are like, oh yeah, the Manhattan incident. And I get that this happened like, you know, half a decade ago. But
yeah,
like that's sort of a big deal. We should see a little bit more of like what the aftermath of that is.
They
can't gloss over that.
MGS4 does a lot of glossing over, where it's, you know, when MGS2 picks up, how do I say it? I feel like I don't know, I was going to say like it treats you with more respect or something, but it's not really what I want to say. You know, with how they bring Gerlukovic back and all these little details that were part of one story. MGS4 doesn't really do that, you know? It doesn't bring back like, subtle details. And
it kicks in the door and is like, that's a nice MGS2 you've got there. It'd be a shame if something happened to it.
If I could make a comparison here, and people are either gonna laugh at me or get enraged or think I'm stupid, one of those three. It kind of reminds me of Game of Thrones in a sense that I appreciated and watched Game of Thrones in the same way I appreciated the second Metal Gear Solid, because there was an effect and a reaction to that effect. You know, like you said, the Galukovich soldiers, how they transitioned after the tanker event and how they kind of were under the control of Solidus and Dead Cell. You know, even how the tanker event itself affected like the greater world. That was, and you know, like with Game of Thrones, how Ned's death kind of rippled down, you know, the entire plot line. And then you get to like Metal Gear Solid 4, like you guys said, and there's no reaction. Just like in Game of Thrones, you know, by season 6, 7, 8, you know, you see these tremendous events, but you don't get to see sort of the reaction to them, which, you know, the reaction is sort of the highlight of your experience.
Days, are you saying that Sunny is Bran?
No, oh, come on, man. Have you guys heard the theory that Sunny is the way she is because Snake tranquilized Olga while she was in her early stages of pregnancy? I think I mentioned that.
People joke about that all the time, and I just think it's kind of a funny little thing. You know, I'm not sure if anyone really takes it that seriously. It's just
that's so bad.
I mean, I feel for the girl. So maybe in some ways I kind of wish that happened to her instead of just being stuck on a plane for her whole life. I don't know.
Dude, I was the dumbass kid who was like, check this out. And I pumped her full of like 40 tranks in the head. It's like, you can see each one. It's amazing. Look at this detail.
I guess one way to defend the Arsenal crash would be that, you know, the world is, when you jump into MGS4, you know, the world has just been completely changed by the Patriots and what happened in MGS2, or at least that's how I look at it. You know, the S3 plan succeeded, and the Patriots were able to create that world that was just consumed by war. And, you know, they created Outer Heaven, basically, a really controlled version of Outer Heaven consumed by all these PMCs. So I guess there's not much, you could argue maybe there's not much point in going over what happened after the Arsenal incident, since, you know, the world has been changed so vastly since then that it's not as relevant, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, it was never really supposed to have a follow-up like that anyway.
Yeah. It's funny as well, another meta detail at the start of the Act 1 briefing. They do acknowledge it, but I think the only thing they say about the Arsenal crash is that the Manhattan incident triggered a serious public backlash. That's what the Colonel says about it.
Who the fuck's thing is this? What are y'all doing up there?
Well, I want to know how they got rid of it. Did they just throw it into reverse, like beep, beep, beep?
The thing that always got me is like people just sort of walking around just as anything is normal.
Yeah.
I'm like, I would get the fuck out of there as far away as possible. They acted like they were going on their lunch break.
Yeah. You can kind of justify it in two, though, because that whole sequence is, again, very surreal.
Yeah.
You know, very dreamlike.
Feels very dreamlike. They're walking around normally. Everyone else is in slow motion. I think it works. Like, I really love the surreal vibe of it.
It's funny. The segment they had to cut out where Arsenal Gear plows into New York and how you don't actually see it in the final game. In a weird way, the fact that they just sort of cut to post-destruction sort of helps it in a way.
I was talking about this with someone else. Yeah.
Although I wonder if maybe the... Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I was talking about this with someone very recently. That's crazy that you bring that up, because I don't think I heard anyone else bring that up before. But yeah, like last week I was talking to a friend of mine. He said it almost adds to the surreal chaos of the previous scene, where Ocelot is explaining everything, and Liquid comes out and Fortune dies, and just all that madness that happens at the end of Arsenal Gear, and then just suddenly you're falling off Arsenal on top of Federal Hall. It kind of works in a way.
Yeah, I was gonna say the setting too, like you go from that sort of surreal octagon for the arena with the rays, and then you have that scene like you said, and then it goes down to Federal Hall, and it's very like cracked, it's it's stone, it's very solid, it's very concrete, so that juxtaposition, yeah, it works.
So here's my thought. There are some images of that removed cutscene in the Metal Gear Solid 2, the book that was released in Japan. It's not much, but you can see just like little snippets of it, little frames. And so I wonder if the intent there was to have this surreal experience up to a point, and then you sort of get slammed back down to the ground, back into reality. There goes gravity, right? And so it becomes very real in that last leg of the game.
Yeah. God, I'd love to see that so much.
Yeah.
People are just like, oh, that's New York for you.
That's why they didn't react. They're like, it's just another day.
Yeah, it's just New Yorkers. They're just fine with it.
Some guy just sees Arsenal gear and he's like, I'm walking here.
Yeah, you can't park that here.
Somebody gonna move this thing? Come on. I got a 5:30.
Oh, man.
Oh, boy. Did y'all want to talk about that group that was working on the different, they were rebuilding the levels in Snake Eater? Not doing a full remake like Games Radar reported?
Oh, God, yeah. Not, oh, God, at the guys doing it. That's cool that they're doing it.
Yeah, it's fucking awesome. Shout out.
Yeah. Oh, God, at the people who are reporting on it falsely. Looking at you, Games Radar. And I've seen them do this multiple times, where there'll be a story and it'll just get spun into something completely inaccurate. But hey, it gets clicks, so who cares?
Yeah, I as soon as I saw that that headline, my first reaction was, okay, what's the real story here? But the project itself is very well. I don't mean for this to be a hate jerk about journalism.
No, it's and just to explain to everybody listening what we're talking about. There was a recent report that went out that said a group of modders for Metal Gear Solid 5 started remaking Metal Gear Solid 3 in MGS5 using MGSV. I'm going to get yelled at again.
It's interchangeable.
It is. But yeah, the story is essentially modders are recreating MGS3 in MGSV's engine, and that's not at all what they're doing. What they're actually doing...
They're using FoxKit, right?
Yeah, FoxKit, which is this in-development tool for creating custom maps in Unity for MGSV. So they can just kind of, the goal is that eventually you'll be able to create a map using in-game assets or external assets, and then you'll be able to just inject that right into MGSV, and then using some of the existing tools, you can create your own missions and objectives and, take it from there. But all they're doing is just trying to remake some of the areas from MGS3 using MGSV's existing assets. As I understand, that's what they're trying to do. They don't have this huge remake project in mind, but that's how it got reported, and that's how the story got spread.
To be honest with you, I feel like that being leveraged as a story to take off about the actual modding tools, I think that's a more interesting story than just remaking 3. I mean, that's exciting, but yeah, I don't know. It'll be interesting to see what comes out of that tool.
I'll play it.
Yeah, I'll definitely give it a shot.
They've been working on this tool for at least a couple of years now, I think. I don't know who specifically is working on it. I don't think the modding team that's working on these maps is the same team as the one that made the tool, but I could be wrong. But apparently the story has spread far enough that they had to update their Discord to have a disclaimer that says, no, we're not remaking MGS3.
Oh, no.
Yeah, because then that's the thing, too. You're at the risk of getting shut down and getting a cease and desist at that point, right?
Yeah.
Instead of it just being like a mod, It's categorized differently, so I guess that's why it matters.
I just zone out of so much remake news. Whenever I see it, I'm just like, I'm just going to wait until some official thing comes out.
Yeah.
Yeah. Welcome to our lives as the host of the Kojima Frequency.
I think about it fairly often, because as a streamer, you're always getting asked about, all sorts of questions. But what do you think of these remake rumors? What do you think of these remake rumors?
You got the inside scoop.
Yeah, so just after so much of that, I've just started to zone out of the conversation really, but I don't think that conversation is going anywhere anytime soon. We're going to be talking about remakes for the next 10 years.
Yeah.
And you know, if a remake happens, these same people who are making shit up are going to be like, "Oh, we knew it all along."
Told you so.
Yeah. Because it's probably going to happen eventually, you know.
Yeah.
All these big titles are probably going to get remade, so you know.
I mean, if there's money on it, you can probably bet it's going to be remade.
Yeah.
But you can't really tell when. So
At least remakes for video games make more sense than remaking movies, you know, with how technology advances, and you know, you can really do different things now with games that were out in the PS1 era, and you know, really reinvent them. With films, it's much harder to reinvent a remake, I think.
yeah, I'd agree. I think we're good as far as codec moments, which is what we call our current events. So yeah, I feel like this is a pretty good time to probably dive into questions about you.
Sure.
Yeah, so let's see here. I guess, you know, we could start with the obvious. I mean, I feel like, at least from my time at Twitch, you guys have been there pretty early, definitely before streaming became a big thing. So I guess obvious first question, but like, how did this begin? How did OHN start from Twitch?
It's a long story. I'll try to cut out any details that aren't worth mentioning. But forgive me if I do ramble on a bit. I'm not really used to telling the story really, but and it goes way back. We started on Justin TV before Twitch was a thing.
Oh God, I haven't heard that name in a while.
Yeah.
Yeah. We started. That's what Twitch was before Twitch became a thing. You know, Justin TV evolved, morphed into Twitch. But yeah, when I started streaming, I discovered Justin TV because I wanted to watch a football match or a soccer match, as you'd call it in the US, some Champions League game. And I noticed that Justin TV, you know, because it was the Wild West back then on JTV.
Oh, yeah.
People were streaming South Park episodes.
Yeah, no copyright claims or anything. Yeah.
Yeah, I think people were even streaming porn sometimes. You know, it was anything goes. Anything and everything went on it. And you know, I was looking for some football match, and then I saw, it has a gaming section, and that just intrigued me because I was into games. And back then, you know, sometimes there'd be less than 20 people live. So this was when it was really in its infancy, and I remember thinking when I saw it, I was like, like this. I feel like this should be way more popular. And of course, I just didn't realize that I was there at the very beginning. So yeah, I saw people streaming games, and I said, this looks fun. I think I'll have a go at it." And especially when I found out that I could do it for free, you know, get free streaming software, play games on an emulator with free streaming software, and that's what I did.
So what year was that? Like when you started?
Oh, that was, I think, 2010.
Yeah. Okay.
And you know, like
Yeah.
obviously I wasn't thinking about making a career out of it or anything. I just saw people streaming games that looked like it would be a fun thing to do. People talking to like-minded people in the chat, and I think another thing that I'm really grateful for, this is kind of strange, is that it sort of revitalized my love for games. At the time, I guess we were like a couple of years into the PS3 era, and the PS3 generation really started to kill my love for games. You know, the first person shooter craze, which I got into a bit. Like I'd play Call of Duty with my friends and stuff like that, but it just felt it was worlds apart from what I was used to, you know, growing up on PS1 and PS2, and with all the classic Final Fantasies and the classic Metal Gears and everything.
Yeah. Some of that magic started to fade.
Yeah, I became really disillusioned with modern games. You know, I'd be reading reviews about GTA 4 and FF13 and Uncharted 1. And I remember just really being underwhelmed by a lot of these big new releases that were coming out. And, you know, things just started to feel way too streamlined, and just, that generation just started to kill my love for games a bit. So when I saw people streaming, and I, you know, and I saw that looked like a fun thing that I might enjoy, that kind of got me back into games, because I didn't have the tech. For one thing, I didn't even have the tech to play modern games, even if I wanted to. So if I was going to stream, I'd be forced into playing older games on emulators. So I went back and played all the classic Final Fantasies and that I loved growing up, FF7, FF8, FF9, Silent Hill 1, and playing those old classics, some of my old favorites, really just got me into games again. And I think I just started being a lot more critical about my purchases. I started to think a lot more about my tastes and everything, because I became a bit of a zombie, I think, at the start of that PS3 era. I would just buy all the new big releases, and I just felt like I wasn't really enjoying things. Wasn't really enjoying games. I was just doing it to pass the time, and yeah, streaming really got me back into games.
I feel that.
Okay.
Which was great. I'm not sure if did you guys have any? Did you guys? I reckon a lot of people might have a similar experience. Maybe not with the PS3 generation. Maybe it was with PS4 or whatever. But yeah, did you guys ever have an experience like that where you became sort of disillusioned with?
Yeah, that's been my like current problem with games lately. Like this past year, like really hit hard. I was just like, man, I am straight up not having a good time with a lot of this, and it's eating up a lot of my time, and I'm finishing these games, but I'm just not having a lot of fun.
Right.
And, I don't know. But then when I would go back and play like just indie, like the new indie stuff that was coming out, I was like, hell yeah. And I think I'm just more like of a retro type gamer. Just some of these big, long narrative games. I'm just, even like Cyberpunk, I was just kind of like, meh, I don't know. I'm not having a good time. So
yeah, definitely this past generation for me as well. Just everything that I thought would be a really amazing time has just been kind of underwhelming.
Yeah.
The biggest of which, I mean, I enjoyed it, but Final Fantasy VII Remake would be a good example.
Yeah.
Of one that just
I really enjoyed the FF7 remake.
I did too, but the more I sit on it, the more it's kind of fading from my memory. And I don't know if that's just because I'm older and my tastes are different and my expectations are higher and I have a sense of nostalgia for the older stuff, or if it's just because this stuff isn't as good as the things that were made previously. I mean, everybody gets older and says, oh, it was so much better back in my day. But like, is that actually true this time? or is it just me?
Yeah. I had issues with the FF7 remake, like certain, I'm unsure about where it's going, which I think is fitting considering the game kind of ends on that note. It ends on a feeling of uncertainty,
Yeah.
Whatever Aerith says about terrifying, boundless freedom or whatever, there's an atmosphere of uncertainty at the end. So I think a lot of my negative feelings about the game hinge on how they follow it up.
Yeah, and maybe that's something that will change. I don't know how they're going to do the second one, but it is kind of funny to have a game talk about endless freedom when it's kept you on rails for the past 24 hours.
Yeah, well, I guess it's fitting in a way. She's talking about this boundless freedom that's coming, and this is when you get into the open world. Even though the open world wasn't that much of an open world in the original game. You were still going to Cam to the Chocobo farm, across the marsh. There were optional things to do, but it was still pretty linear,
Yeah, but at the time, when you leave Midgar that first time, you're like, oh my God, this is the actual game? I thought I was playing the actual game.
Yeah.
Like, it blows your mind.
Yeah, what a moment. Yeah, it's the world map, you see this big world map, and even though the path you might be on, even though the path is linear that you're on, you see this huge map and you see that you're going to be going to all these places. So you just get that instant sense of scale.
Yeah, you see the other continents and shit when you open it up. Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know. Maybe it's just me.
I don't know, man. I'm with you, man. I think there's something missing in these games that have been coming out lately, and I don't know. It may just be that we experienced those retro games when we were a kid, and it was just like that much more magical.
Maybe what's missing is youthful idealism.
Yeah. But I mean, that's, I don't know, like we gotta maybe ask like this generation of kids growing up with this generation of games, like are they that into them, or are they just kind of like, this is kind of weak? And if they go back and play Metal Gear Solid 2, if they're like, hell
Those kids sure love Fortnite.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess like growing up
Yeah.
in that social situation too, where it's like, got the newest skin, bro. It's like, no, beat him up. You know, I don't know how the fucking elementary schools are going these days, but that's how I imagine it.
I also try to consider, you know, how the game industry has evolved in a business sense. That, you know, when we were playing games, a lot of these developers or these development companies, they were focused on, hey, we're just a bunch of creatives. We want to make something cool. Let's get the funding and make these games. Whereas today, you know, it's this huge business where you have like these corporate folks trying to figure out what is the most efficient way to monetize a game. And that's
Yeah.
sort of the goal or the core. So yeah, I'm
Yep.
not trying to be like old lady, like this is shit, but
No, I
but
think
there are
it's all
very
valid.
clear, there are very clear differentiators and circumstances between the generations.
And besides PC games, I mean, they didn't have patches or updates, so they were worried about making like a good game that was going to go out finished and like people are going to like it. You know, now they're just like, yeah, we'll just put it out. They'll buy it. Fuck it. Whatever. It'll crash their system and
Now we have early access.
delete their save file and then corrupt it later, and they'll have to start all over. Cyberpunk. God damn it.
Well, it's
I'm glad I got out before that whole patch situation happened too.
oh yeah, it was like
07.
patch 1.1 or something like that too. Was breaking stuff. I can't like I have if I had $1 for every time I heard a game say or somebody say, yeah, that game is good now, like they fixed it.
Yeah,
That's
that's a new phrase.
that is like a trope now in game development.
So, how did you meet the other streamers of Outer Heaven? You got DRK.
Yeah, DRK and Knight, who doesn't really work with us anymore, but yeah, I met them both on JTV as well. They were there in the early days. Like I said, I sort of became disillusioned with the PS3 era and went back to my old classics, and that sort of got me into streaming. And yeah, I didn't really play much Metal Gear at all at the start. I mainly played Final Fantasy, and that's how I met Knight, because he played a lot of Final Fantasy as well. And DRK,
I think he still does.
yeah. He well, not all the time, but yeah, occasionally. And DRK was the first to really start off the whole Metal Gear thing. When he started streaming, he mainly did Metal Gear. He did Final Fantasy VIII quite a bit as well.
Nitroid's favorite.
Yeah.
He would do a lot of Metal Gear, and I just found him because I was a Metal Gear fan. I was looking through JTV channels.
One other person is streaming Metal Gear. You're like, hey.
Yeah, I just got to know him as a viewer. You know, I was just a viewer in his channel, just hanging out with everyone else. And yeah, like it's crazy to think back on those days. You know, because I didn't even talk on mic for the first few years of streaming. Same with DRK, and he'd still get a decent audience. I can't remember what numbers we were really bringing in back then, or how many numbers DRK was bringing in. But yeah, for the time, pretty decent crowds. But yeah, no mic, just talking to people in chat through text, just crazy. Like I'm not sure if anyone does that now, or at least people who are trying to get an audience, or people who have a decent audience. I'm not sure if anyone talks through chat.
I think the only time I've seen something without any commentary outside of purposefully out of commentary is like Salty Bet. I can't remember the last time I've heard a stream without commentary.
Yeah, so Knight got to know him as well because he was a Metal Gear fan. And they then started doing marathons together where, you know, we do these, it's kind of what we do now, even way back then.
Yeah.
Even way back then, you know, the marathons were a thing. That's always been kind of at the core of what we do, even since the very early days. But yeah, they would marathon together and do these big nonstop 24-hour marathons. Maybe they went beyond 24-hour marathons. I can't really remember. Can't really remember the structure of it back then. But yeah, you know, they would do those big streams. And unfortunately, I wasn't really able to join them until like 2012, because I was living at home with my parents in 2010, 2011, and I just had terrible internet. It wasn't possible to stream all these other games, and I couldn't even afford the equipment anyway back then. But yeah, when I moved out, I joined up with them, and that's when it really started, I guess. We we just when Justin TV became Twitch, we thought we should sort of merge under one channel, which is what we did for many years, until very recently, where we're doing our, where we have separate channels again, but we're still helping each other.
Yeah, I mean, it's you guys are still doing a great job, and I think you guys just did a 3-day marathon last weekend?
Yeah. We usually do 5-day, where we do the whole Kojima saga. Doing like, in-depth playthroughs, showing all the Easter eggs, all the interesting optional story-related calls, talking about the games, and just discussing things with chat, whatever comes up.
All the remake questions.
Yeah. Which MGS is your favorite for the 5 millionth time? But we just joined up. We all had similar interests. We were all big into Metal Gear, and we thought it would be cool if we teamed up. Because especially when it comes to these big marathons, we couldn't do those solo, obviously, and we just thought it was a cool concept. These big in-depth marathons. And it's always great just showing people new things, because these games are crazy. We're still discovering new things. And I don't know. I'm still not tired of it. I don't know how, but I'm still not tired of it. It's always fun when we do these big marathons. Because when you replay these games again and again, I feel like I'm always going to, even if I don't discover something new, I might think about something in a different light. And I think that's why I just love MGS2 so much. The more I replay 2, just the more I love it, and the different things I see in it. Although I guess you could say that for the games I don't really like as well, like 4.
Yeah, just like the more you play the series,
Yeah, I don't know. They're endlessly replayable, I think. You're always going to see something new when you play them, whether it is actually new content or just seeing something in a different light.
Yeah.
Yeah, most definitely. And, to the point of those marathons, I do think that as a product in itself has evolved over time as well as your channel has grown. Obviously you started having delineations, things like, we're going to do like a big boss marathon, or, we're going to do in-depth stories. But there's also like a lot of engagement that has evolved over time. The one thing that kind of sticks out in my mind is how every sort of like decision that you can make in these games has a donation thing now. So like,
well, we try to limit that. We don't want to be too greedy, but we mainly just do that for 1 and 3. If people can donate for Meryl's fate, which was actually started by chat. We didn't really start that.
Oh, okay.
But we have those bidding wars for Meryl's fate and the End's fate. How you dispose of the End, because obviously there are 3 different ways you can do that.
You should you should do one for Snake's beard. Should you keep the beard during Arsenal gear?
Should we shave him or not? Nah. See, I don't want to gamify the stream too much.
Yeah.
I already, like, people really love the Meryl bidding war. Like, I feel like even if I became a millionaire, I probably would feel like that would be a little bit too much. I have all this money and I'm still sucking the money out of chat for this Meryl thing.
Right.
But I really think that chat just loves the Meryl.
That's
war.
perfect.
So I don't think we would ever get rid of that.
Didn't somebody a few days ago, or not, a few like a week or so ago, like they donated like 1,000 to kill Meryl?
Oh yeah, Mint was suitably named. Yeah, one of our viewers, Mint, was just unbelievably generous during the last marathon. I think he gifted maybe $4,000 worth.
Wow.
Oh my God.
Shout out to Mint.
Yeah.
Like he gifted, because he gifted subs as well. He gifted a few hundred subs. He donated $2,000 to me, $500 to DRK. He's donated thousands and thousands to us before as well. So we're lucky to have very generous people. It's hard to feel like you deserve it. Suddenly all this money is being thrown at you in the middle of a stream, and it can be hard to know what to say to that. You just feel like I'm just here playing Metal Gear. It's crazy.
And not even just in a sense that you're playing, oh, I'm getting all this money playing video games, but you're getting this money, diving into something that you're so passionate about.
Yeah.
It's something that comes effortlessly, if you will.
Yeah, I think that's what a lot of people are attracted to as well. And I think it's because, if you're a new viewer, there's a good chance you're going to see something you haven't seen before.
Most definitely. Yeah.
Yeah, because I remember when I played when I was first going through the series, I thought I knew about I thought I knew about the majority of the Easter eggs and the optional calls, and Jesus Christ, I was barely scratching the surface of it.
That's how you guys made me feel when I started watching you. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a rabbit hole.
Yeah, like it feels almost wrong to call them Easter eggs because they're like such a big part of the game. There's so many of them. Does it still classify as an Easter egg if the whole game is just covered in them?
Yeah.
And a lot of the time they feel like they're more than just, oh, look at this funny little thing. Like they'll tie into the themes in interesting ways.
Yeah.
And they were thought about. They weren't just, it wasn't just, oh, let's just do a silly thing here. They tried to tie it into oftentimes anyway. Obviously there are lots of silly things, but oftentimes they'll try and tie those details into the themes and everything, which is just great.
Maybe that's why modern games suck. We were spoiled. We grew up on fucking Metal Gear, man. It's a high standard.
I still love a lot of modern games.
Nothing's ever going to beat that tanker.
Yeah. Like I'm a big fan of FromSoft's games. Like I love Souls, Bloodborne, which is is fairly new. It's like 5 years old. That's maybe my favorite game ever. The other games came out. The Last Guardian, which I really loved. That was a polarizing game, but I
loved it.
I adored that game.
Good old bird dog.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Ueda's games in general. Looking forward to seeing what he's doing next. Yoko Taro, Nier Automata, obviously, was a big one that a lot of people really enjoyed. Yeah, no, I enjoy modern games. I'm just a lot more careful about my purchases now. I think.
For sure.
I tried to challenge myself like a month ago. I said, okay, I'm going to buy a game that I've no interest in and see if I like it. And it was the first time I did that in a long time. I was like, okay, I'm just going to try one of these new releases, something that I've no interest in, and just see if I get pleasantly surprised. And the game was Ghost of Tsushima, and I just didn't take to it at all. I saw trailers for it, I had no interest, but I said, well, let's just try it out. Maybe I'll be pleasantly surprised, but I just didn't get into it at all. So I think I'm just going to go back to my original philosophy and just really be careful about what I buy so I don't get too disappointed.
I was waiting for you to say like some infamously like shitty game, and then you said Ghost of Tsushima, and I'm like, okay, yeah, he should probably, yeah, he's right.
I'm not trying to take a jab at Ghost of Tsushima either. I just didn't really vibe with it. You know.
Yeah, and I feel like that's sort of the gold standard in terms of the modern AAA game. So. I feel like if that can't tide you over, then yeah, maybe this generation might not scratch that itch.
Yeah.
So has there been a game from the past year or so that's kind of clicked with you?
I'm trying to think what games came out recently. FF7 Remake, which I enjoyed a lot, even though I did have a fair amount of issues with it. I'm trying to think of.
Did you play The Last of Us?
Yeah, I actually enjoyed The Last of Us 2 quite a bit.
Right.
Again, I thought it stumbled more than the first game. And it wasn't as tight.
I thought the stealth elements were where it really shined.
I'm not really like I wouldn't say I was a huge fan of the first game either.
Yeah.
But it was weird. The first time I played The Last of Us, I wasn't crazy about it at all. I just didn't really connect to Joel and Ellie and their relationship. But the second time I played it, for some reason I did. I guess it's weird, sometimes your enjoyment of a game might depend on the mood you're in at the time when you play it.
Oh, for
sure.
And
I think that probably happened to me with The Last of Us 1, because I really didn't connect to it at all the first time I played it. And then the second time I really did. And then with The Last of Us 2, I thought it stumbled a bit more and it was a bit overlong. But I thought it had some really powerful moments, like the museum sequence with Ellie as a kid and Joel. Man, that really got to me. The space shuttle scene.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought that was really, really great. Maybe my favorite scene out of both of the games. I thought that was just really touching.
Weren't you going through Hitman 3 recently as well? What was sort of your overall experience with that?
Yeah, the Hitman games are good fun. Yeah, really, really good fun playing those. Was playing Yakuza, the new Yakuza game earlier as well. Good fun with that too. Jesus, Yakuza rivals Metal Gear when it comes to cutscene length
Yeah.
and the amount of
yeah.
cutscenes.
And in tonal shift.
Jeez, I like.
Yeah, an absurdity.
Yeah, God, like the first 4 hours of Yakuza 7, I feel like there's maybe 45 minutes of gameplay in total.
Oh man.
I mean, I guess it depends on what you do, but yeah, I don't think you're really given many. I don't think you're given many choices at the start to even do mini games and stuff like that. I think you're, for the most part, roped into doing the story, and yeah, it's crazy, crazy long scenes, but entertaining. I'm enjoying the story.
Well, I think talking about modern games is kind of a good segue into something else we wanted to kind of talk to you about as, not just a streamer, but, sort of the flagship Metal Gear streamer. What's it like to stream and to be sort of a public face in such a divisive fandom? And then to that point, can you tell us sort of your experience when like Metal Gear Solid 5 came out? Because I know that's sort of when that sort of divisiveness hit a catalyst, I feel like.
Right. That's that's a good question. That's a good question. I played a big part in how divisive 5 was because I really hyped the shit out of it before it came out. I would play trailers like at the start of almost
I remember
every
that,
stream.
yes.
Yeah. And I really hyped it up. And but it wasn't like an unnatural, it wasn't what's the word? A constructed sort of thing. I really wanted to do it because I was naturally hyped. I was analyzing all the trailers, and I was super hyped, and I was super into it, and I loved talking about the trailers with chat and hyping everyone up.
That was the best hype train of like any video game ever, I think.
Yeah,
Like, I was
Jesus,
right there
those
with
trailers
you, dude. I was
were-
just like, yes, come on, like analyzing it frame by frame, and man, back when Young was good.
Those trailers were something else, man. Kojima should get into editing music videos or something if this video game thing doesn't work out, because he's really good at trailers. But yeah, I hyped the game up, and then the game came out, and people were angry. It kind of felt like MGS2 again. I wasn't around for the MGS2 backlash.
It's almost exactly the
Yeah,
same.
and I mean, another thing about MGS2 is when that came out, the internet was still sort of in this weird wild, wild west phase where there was no centralized, like, socializing. There wasn't any Twitch. There wasn't, a face with the fandom. There wasn't people who really controlled that type of stuff outside of, like, fan pages and forums. So to be in such a live environment during, like Nitroid said, an MGS2-esque level of outrage. Like, I can't imagine, I guess, having that responsibility. But sorry, go ahead, continue.
The game came out, people were unhappy, but people were so unhappy that I was pretty disappointed by it. But I didn't really connect to the outrage of the community. I felt sort of detached from it. I sort of understood why people were angry. And I was pretty disappointed as well. But yeah, I just kind of felt detached from it. And I guess I still kind of do in a way. I don't know. I feel like I still need to sort out my thoughts on MGS5. I don't really know how I feel about it.
Yeah.
What I've wanted to do for a long time, ever since the game came out, is do what Futura Sound did recently in his What the Hell Happens in MGS5. Where he goes through all the individual missions and tries to make all these connections. All those little conspiracies that Miller goes on about with, Saner and Finda Oilfield and all these proxy companies and the conspiracies within. Because I feel like that's probably where a lot of the depth lies in MGS5. But it's also I'm not sure if you guys feel this way about 5, but dialogue in that game has a habit of going in one ear and like right out the other ear. Miller is speculating to himself about all these things about how they're going to track Cypher, and he's making all these connections, and I'm not sure if we as the players supposed to be invested in what Miller is talking about when he's making all these connections, because we are Big Boss, and he's talking to us more than he's conversing with another player, with another character, like in the previous Metal Gears. So I'm wondering, are we supposed to be really invested in all these little conspiracies? Because I find it so hard to care about what's going on in that game, why you're doing the things you're doing, which I think is an intentional part of it. Because, as Miller says, it's just wet work. It's just a means to an end. We don't really have any involvement in it aside from that.
Yeah, you're basically just doing a bunch of side missions that really don't have anything to do with anything. Yeah, you're just I
well,
feel
they
for
do,
sure.
like it does slowly
Yeah,
build up to something, and within those missions, there are details that connect to the larger narrative. It's just so hard to care.
I think it's
because
definitely the delivery of the narrative in that game like makes it so different, because you're listening to these tapes and like briefings and you're like, okay, cool, let's go do this mission, and then you're in and out, and it was like, okay, that was that one, got it. But it's a lot more linear and streamlined in the other games, to where you're like doing an operation. And I think that's where a lot of people say, where's the story? And then it's like there's plenty of story. You just have to piece it together by listening to all this shit and all these tapes, and just like kind of put it together.
Yeah.
But the other games were a lot more like, not spoon fed, but you got it all like going right through it.
Well, plus they're more personal, whereas these ones are more detached.
Yeah.
Yeah. But like, how do you guys feel about the history of the vocal cord parasites, and listening to Code Talker talk for 40 minutes about parasites in the voice that he has? I find it so hard to really care about so many of the concepts in 5, just with how they're delivered.
Yeah, that cadence was killer. His gotta sped that up a little bit. Yeah.
I don't want to get into the whole debate, on whether or not what MGSV did with its narrative was, how intentional was it? How much was it trying to elicit a specific feeling, whether that feeling's negative or not? That, essentially the did it suck on purpose argument, for lack of a better way to put it. Same one that you can have for MGS4. Without getting into that, I didn't care much at all for the cassette tapes. Unlike in Peace Walker, where I listened to every single one and was invested for almost every single one.
Oh yeah.
It's kind of amazing how different they are.
Yeah, it's like exposition, just in MGSV.
Yeah. It's all down to the fact that we're playing as a mute protagonist, really, just listening to these characters talk to themselves, especially Miller. Like, so much of the story is told through pre-mission briefings, post-mission analysis. Miller just constantly speculating about these leads to Cypher, and these proxy companies and PFs, and these characters that, are barely characters, that, might have a couple of lines in a mission when you interrogate them.
And it's hard to take it from Kaz too, because he's so paranoid.
I was really looking forward to that approach after playing Ground Zeroes, because I loved, one of my favorite things about Ground Zeroes was just learning that map and learning where all the conversations took place. And it really built XOF and Skullface up as this mystery.
Yeah.
I thought Skullface was fascinating in Ground Zeroes, how he had this past connection to Big Boss. Like, who is this guy? It almost felt like they were doing something supernatural with him, like some Silent Hill shit where he was like born out of Big Boss's mind or something. That's how far I was going with it anyway in Ground Zeroes, because he started, he has these direct quotes of Big Boss from Peace Walker. In one of the tapes, or in one of the POW monologues, one of the POWs talks about Skullface interrogating him, and one of the things he says is something that Big Boss told Chico in Peace Walker. He directly quotes Big Boss from Peace Walker, and I was like, wow, how is this is a Big Boss line of dialogue? was Skullface there, lurking in the shadows during that scene? Like, how is this possible? So yeah, like they really built up Skullface and XOF as this real, it was this really interesting mystery. For me anyway, I don't think the Phantom Pain really capitalized on it. Skullface became much less menacing around halfway through the Phantom Pain, when he appears with Sahelanthropus and he's, today is the day weapons learn to walk upright. I was like, what?
Yeah, he just becomes corny.
Yeah, he becomes really corny.
Once that Who line came out.
And like this guy cares about Metal Gear tech now. And, he was this like rapist and sadistic schemer in Ground Zeroes. Like he, first Zero, then Big Boss. Liberation is at hand. He was this real force to be reckoned with. He was taking down Zero and taking down Big Boss. And, he was smart and conniving and sadistic and horrific and scary to look at. He's not even really scary to look at in the Phantom Pain, with his mask and everything. And it kind of looks like his face isn't even as detailed, but maybe that has something to do with the lighting and like the raindrops on his face in Ground Zeroes. But yeah, I thought he became like way less menacing in the Phantom Pain. And then like his big moment, his final monologue in the Jeep. What was up with that?
Yeah, worst song placement ever.
And again, I think a lot of this might have been by design. I think a lot of it has to have been. Venom looking to the side as if Skullface isn't even there when he's given his monologue. Obviously, he doesn't respond to him, but he even looks away. They have him look away from him. Like they really undersell it. And then the music, Kojima knows that like what's, we saw the trailers. We see, we can see how that music fits with a certain type of tone.
Yeah, that was the worst placement.
But the way it interrupts that monologue, I've seen so many people stream it on Twitch, and like almost everyone has the same reaction. Where it's just like, what?
Yeah.
What is this?
I've said this before, but the way it came off to me, and for what purpose you can. Who can say, but
yeah,
the impression I got when I first saw that scene was that it was a sort of like inversion of the latter segment from MGS3, where you sort of have this
right.
serene intermission and the music fits well and you can just kind of take a breath and relax because you just finished fighting the end. And it's like, it's a break, right?
Yeah.
And then they set up the Jeep sequence in somewhat of the same way where you're going to put down the controller for a minute and you're just going to listen to something, but it's just awkward.
Yeah.
And uncomfortable.
Yeah.
It's like an inverse intermission.
Mm.
Like for what purpose? I don't know.
It makes me want to get up and leave. Yeah.
Right. I don't want to do this anymore.
Makes me want to leave the theater while the movie's going, just to get out and take a breath of fresh air. Yeah.
It does have that feeling.
Yeah. If you got to pee, go do it.
Right.
One thing that I kind of feel during that scene is, at least I think anyway, Skullface believes he's talking to the real Big Boss, right? At least I think so. I don't think Skullface is aware of Venom. He's like, "Follow me, Big Boss," and you walk to the Jeep. And there's just something kind of funny about it when you think of it like that. He's giving you his whole philosophy. Like this is his Federal Hall Solidus moment. This is his Metal Gear Rex Liquid moment. The boss at the end of MGS3. It's a recurring thing that the villain has their big final monologue. And this is Skullface's moment, but he's talking to someone who isn't Big Boss, who doesn't even know he's there. It's like he's not even there. So
there's this whole thing through the game of unfulfilled revenge, and there's another one.
Yeah.
It's so funny, though.
Yeah, just a baffling scene, really.
I think I had the camera like positioned to where like I had it rotated a little bit to where like it basically looked like Venom Snake looked at the camera like on The Office or something. It's just like, man, can you believe this?
Can you believe I'm here right now?
I want to know what Skullface's plan was if Zero didn't prick his finger.
Yeah, people get really annoyed about that, but for some reason it doesn't really bother me. Like who knows what that little pin looked like? he was obviously like, this meant a lot to Zero, so he was going to caress it and feel it. I guess you could maybe argue that he shouldn't be as much of an idiot, to maybe to trust him as much if he is this most secretive person in the world. But yeah, I guess he trusts Skullface. But yeah, for some reason that one doesn't bother me as much. Why he doesn't blindfold Paz when she goes to visit him, though, that's maybe a bit stranger. Paz is the one who tells Skullface exactly where he is, the room number and the address and everything. So maybe that's a bit silly.
The bell tape was my favorite when he's sitting there talking about ringing the bell and there's a soldier standing outside.
Yeah.
That was pretty cool.
I think it would have been cool if they did more of that.
Again, though, it's so hard to care about those tapes.
If there were more tapes like that, it would have been cool, I think, where you like really had to picture a scene.
Mm-hmm.
There was a lot I really loved about the Truth tapes, actually getting to hear Zero post MGS4. And I think they did a really good job at balancing quirky old Zero with his MGS4 development.
Yeah.
They didn't make him stereotypically evil. He still had his quirkiness, but he was this new character. Because I think, for a lot of people, that development in 4 was too hard to swallow, coming so late in the series and opening up this whole can of worms with Big Boss and Zero. I think 5 really did a lot to make that easier to digest.
You touched on something there. Again, I think maybe one of the differences between Peace Walker and MGS5 is that the tapes in Peace Walker were all almost like little radio dramas. There were actions, there were things happening. It wasn't just flat conversation a lot of the time. And in MGSV,
there's still, yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, no, there still was a fair bit of I still feel like the majority was conversation in Peace Walker. It was just that, there was a lot more humor, That was another thing about MGS5, Kojima stated early on, this is going to be a darker Metal Gear. There's not going to be as much humor.
We had the burgers and
for me, a lot of that, for me, a lot of that darkness just translated as sort of, I don't know, what's the word? Just kind of dullness, I'm not... Humor was such a big part of Kojima's style. I feel like he maybe went a little bit too far with it in the Phantom Pain, to not include it. We had the hamburgers and stuff like that, and you Fulton a sheep and it goes bah when you Fulton it. But
it was more goofy gameplay wise. Yeah.
Yeah, there was lots of goofy gameplay, but the story and tapes took itself very seriously.
Yeah. That's where it went. Yep.
And I was so on board for that, playing Ground Zeroes was like, yes, let's do it. Let's have this darker approach. But I don't know, I just found the Phantom Pain, a lot of it just to be very dull. But yeah, I think the Peace Walker conversations are easier to digest because there's way more humor, way more charm, and there's a back and forth between characters. Snake talks a lot. Like the stuff between Snake and Huey in Peace Walker is really great. Cecile's conversations are hilarious. The wine call, tracking Santa on NORAD.
Classic.
Chico talking about cryptids.
Yeah.
Peace Walker definitely had a lot of charm and just good times. It was like a lot lighter tone for sure.
Yeah. Before I really solidify my opinion on 5, I really want to do another playthrough where I, go for the 100%. Explore the FOB system because that's something I never did, and I feel like that's ties in pretty heavily with what Kojima wanted to achieve with the game.
Yeah, that was a blast when everybody was on that.
Yeah, I wish I did more of it because I feel like maybe I would have enjoyed that. Because I thought the missions were pretty samey, and that's one thing that really bothered me about 5 was that it said that. One of the big things in the marketing was that you can play it any way, One person will play a mission and they'll have this experience. Another person will play it and they'll have this whole different experience. And it's kind of true in a way, but I don't know. I see a lot of people crouching with that tranq pistol, popping headshots and Fultoning things. And I feel like that kind of gets stale after a while. There's a lot of, it's extraction mission after extraction mission after extraction mission. Most of them are pretty bite-sized. Find a random guard, hold him up, ask him where the target is, find the target, sneak around with your tranq, Fulton everyone, and You know, there's a lot of that. And it's real and it's great for a while, you know, because the movement is incredible. It's better than it ever was before. The way guards subtly move around, they're not just like stick figures where once you're aimed on their head, you're definitely going to pull off a headshot. You know, shooting mechanics and everything felt more engaging.
I really like the economy, how they kind of would like figure out how you were playing, and then like you could mess up their supplies if they started wearing helmets. You know, like you could just mess with that whole system. I thought that was pretty neat.
Yeah, how like claymores would be set in place if you revisited an area and stuff like that would catch you off guard. But yeah, I don't know. I found the gameplay to be pretty underwhelming, you know, especially compared to how people often talk about it, you know, with it's like anything is possible and you can play it in a load of different ways. I don't know. I feel pretty railroaded in 5. You know, I feel like I'm encouraged to play in a pretty specific way.
Wash, rinse, repeat. Just another day in a war without end.
Yeah. You know, you kind of have to go out of your way if you want to do like certain creative things. Like, you know, you can strap a C4 to a Jeep and have it blow up a chopper, but it's not really the most practical thing to do. So yeah, I guess I kind of wish you were encouraged to mix up your style a bit more in practical ways, you know?
Yeah.
But I do appreciate that 5 compared to 4, you know, I'm glad that there are more mysteries related to 5. I feel like even though it didn't go as planned, maybe Kojima still got to end the series more on his own terms, I think, with 5. He got to end it with mysteries and questions and this weird, you know, what's the word? Sort of subversion of MGS2's ending, you know, where we get the opposite of 2's ending. I think that just what the whole ending means is very interesting to me. Maybe what do you guys think about the ending and what Kojima's trying to say and how it's this inverse of 2 with Big Boss urging you to become like him? And, you know, I feel like on the surface, you could look at it as a thanks from Kojima to the players. You know, we built this legend together. But if you look at it within the story, it feels like this, you know, grand manipulation by Big Boss. And, you know, what's that supposed to mean with regards to a message to the player, I wonder. You know, it's hard not to really read it in a cynical light, I think.
I think you're spot on.
Are we supposed to reject what the game is to some degree?
It's MGS2 but cynical.
You know, when you take it in a vacuum, you know, I can see that whole like this is sort of a triumphant ascension into the title of Big Boss, but when you juxtapose it with Metal Gear Solid 2, it does feel like this very unsettling, cynical, you know, oppressiveness, I guess.
Yeah.
It feels like someone handing you dog tags.
Right.
Exactly.
Like, here's your dog tags. You're like, oh, shit, I don't want these.
Yeah.
You didn't get it the first time around? Okay.
Yeah.
Well.
Oh, man. Hey, ThreeDogg, we appreciate you coming on, man.
Cheers. It was great to be here. Sorry if I went on a bit too long.
No,
there,
it was
awesome.
Hopefully it doesn't bore people.
Oh, no.
No, not boring at all, man.
Yeah,
good
seriously,
talk.
we've been waiting for this for a while.
Great to be here.
Yeah, man, if you want to tell people where they can find you online and where your Twitch channels are, you can, you know, plug your stuff.
Yeah, sure. Twitch.tv/ThreeDogg, THREEDOGG. Also twitch.tv/Outer Heaven, my partner who streams there. We stream together. You know, we do marathons on each other's channels. So, yeah, you know, if you love Metal Gear, you'll probably see something new watching those marathons like we often do. Tune in, I guess.
Awesome.
If it piques your interest, take a look. Also on Twitter. What am I on Twitter? What's my handle? Dog TTV, I think. DOGG TTV. Yeah, that's where you can find me.
Oh yeah, man.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks so much, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. That was a fun talk.